Hey everyone, welcome to the Because Cannabis podcast. Every single Wednesday, brand new episodes, 4:20 p.m. On YouTube. Every single Thursday on Spotify and anywhere that you listen to audio podcasts. My name is B.C. Wehman. I got big old smiles on my face because I haven't to you, nor has Dustin Kava since the last time we had a brand new episode, a live stream episode just a week ago, the Issue 2 info sesh, a breakdown of what Issue 2 was going to be in Ohio. Tons of tremendous guests joined us for that show. We didn't know what was going to happen after it went live. And here we sit, Dustin Kava. Here we sit almost. By the way, we've been coming up on our 2-year anniversary, almost 2 straight years. We have put out shows. I think this will be 95, 96, somewhere. Big guess for 100. So almost 2 straight years, Dustin.
No,
every single time we have fired up this podcast, every single time we've turned on the microphones, cannabis has been illegal in the positions, in the chairs that our butts sit in. Yet today, Dustin, legal. How you feeling, son? How you feeling about it?
I'm rolling up a fatty, a big hog leg. And
I think technically it's illegal to roll the hog leg still. I think you still have to wait at least till December 7th, till it's signed into law.
Well, then, I am not rolling up a hog.
It was a little anticlimactic. I want to tell you, right, it's been about a week since cannabis has been legal, and absolutely nothing has changed in my life. Like, my daily routine hasn't changed. I can still roll down the street and go pick up a bunch of cannabis. Like, nothing's different. But I appreciate maybe, that I won't feel as fearful. I'm excited about the things to come. I do not think we're going to get all weeded out, even like Michigan. Do you think Ohio goes all in? Do you think they start to have outside festivals and hash bashes? Do you think they'll be able to pull that off, Dustin, or no?
Probably not. I don't know. I don't fucking know. Maybe in the next governor.
Yeah, not under this one. It's going to be exciting, though. It's going to be a little different. It's going to be interesting and competitive as all these other companies begin to try to figure out how to find their way into this cannabis space. And we got one of those kind of fellows with us today on the show, Ross Haught, Haught Hemp Farms, joining us. Ross, you are someone who was kind of that similar thing. Hey, how you doing? We'll get all the intros here in just a minute, but you're one of those people that had kind of that similar vibe getting into cannabis. And now that it has been legal, do you feel different in any way, shape, or form?
Not really, other than I feel confident when I'm driving around now with my little bag on me, and I know I'm not going to get in trouble.
It was a little anticlimactic. I went to bed at like 9:30 on election night, so I didn't even know till the next day. I wanted it to be like a New Year's celebration. Like, I was hoping for kind of when it became official, like at midnight, like fireworks being popped off, neighbors, I don't know, shooting guns in the air. I needed some more excitement for it to happen. It's literally like a headline and then it's nothing. That's all it's going to be. It feels so anticlimactic in a weird way. More excitement other than people just all sending all their social media posts. Did you fire up social media, Ross? Were you the first thing you did and be like, hey,
oh, yeah,
everyone, weed's legal?
My Instagram's been popping today.
That's how old we are, Dustin. I've never said my Instagram's popping.
I feel like such a dick because I have not in any way. I've just woke up like it was a Tuesday and hung out. Like I don't know. I did not even congratulate a single person today.
What do you
Last
congratulate
week.
them for? Right? Thank you for exercising your right to vote. Is that what we congratulate them for?
No, but I think there's that, like, we did it, Bob. Like, nice job. You know, like that camaraderie of like, we were all in this together. And I didn't say anything to anyone.
Were people fired up today, Ross? Whenever you ran into someone, were they all like fist bumping you? Were they passing joints out willy nilly? Were they throwing buds in the air like they just don't care?
Just another day in the office for me.
So, like, when you called up someone, they weren't like, thank you for calling Reverb. He's legal now. You know, like, they didn't like...
That should be, I think you should make that. Thank you for calling Haught Hemp Farms. Weed is legal. How can I help you today? I think that should be your opening sentence. We're talking with Ross Haught, Haught Hemp Farms. I steal. You can steal. It's all yours. All yours. Haught Hemp Farms. Growing the other cannabinoids, Ross. Graduate of the Cleveland School of Cannabis. Went to Hocking College. Started to get into this phase, both working in testing and working in horticulture, right? Working in the other cannabinoids. Yes, give us your quick bio, right? Give us your rundown. Give us something that's probably on your website. Give us a quick bio and where you're at, and we'll go from there.
Man, as you said, I went to school at Hocking College for Cannabis Lab Sciences, attended CSC, got some horticulture processing certificates. I jumped straight in, started cultivating. Now I work at Pinnacle Testing Labs, testing medical cannabis in Ohio, and I grow my own hemp, high in CBG, CBD, CBDV, all that good stuff that people are sleeping on right now because it's some quality stuff.
All right, we got to start right there. So we were starting to write down. We were on Haught Hemp Farms. You can find a link to the site in the comments below. You can check out. You're selling products now. And Dustin's clicking through. And the first question, he's like, "Do you know what CBDV is?" I'm like, "What? There's another letter?" I'm like, "No, I don't. I can't keep up with the letters." And I think when I hear, and probably what happened was when they kind of came out in D8 and all these other, what I call the THC alphabet started, where they were taking CBG and CBD flower and just spraying who knows what onto it, right? Yeah. Those letters became a bit eye-rolling to me, like the THC O's and B's and P's, and it just became a thing. But I don't know, CBDV, I don't think is that. Can you just, I need to know what this is, or why am I sleeping on it? What does the V mean, Ross? Break it down for me.
It's just a varin is what cannabidivarin, I think is how you say it. It's just a different chemical makeup that's similar to CBDV. I mean, to CBD. It's naturally occurring, so it's not something that I put on the flower. It's actually bred through genetics. Through Oregon CBD specifically is the company. They're based out of Oregon. They're doing some crazy stuff with hemp genetics. They came out with the first high CBG strain, which I believe was stem cell, which I grew this year actually. They came out with a white. They're the only company that I know of that has CBDV genetics. There could be more. But the plants that I grew in the field this year, although they have CBDV, they're not CBDV dominant. They actually grow 1-to-1 with CBD. So all my products will have around, like the future products that have resin from this harvest will have around like a 1-to-1 of both CBD and CBDV. I haven't really got to try it too much. So honestly, I can't really give a review on how it's different, how it's not. I mean, I've obviously tried it, but like maybe 5 times since I harvested it. So I'm still new to it as well. It's not dangerous, I'll say that.
It definitely feels like something that floats. I'm sure it's really good, but it does feel like something that floats in between marketing and not marketing, right? It's like having like electrolytes plus. Like we put more salt in there so you can get even more electrolytes. Like you're probably pretty good with the regular electrolytes, but there is, and if I went down, I did a quick Google search, Ross. I did my homework. Come on. I went to the College of Google. I went to there, and there is some sort of minor variance which affects some sort of receptor in our brain, which would probably do it, but it's kind of in that potential part of it. When you have these like science breakthroughs like this, or this kind of thing that says, hey, here's this new strain? Does that excite you? Like, do you like the new thing on the menu and you're like, yeah, I want to try it? Do you want to see it go through some cycles or some harvest seasons in Oregon or wherever, where they're like, okay, because this is fairly new, and give it 4 or 5 years from now, is CBD feels still a thing? And I think in cannabis, right, Dustin, we always float between early adoption and like wait and see kind of thing. So when you're looking at next stages cultivation, right, are you going all in on new stuff, the new hotness, or do you want to see some tried and true, it's been out in the market, what are the patients, what are the customers, what's Reddit saying, those things?
I do get pretty excited, but I don't really jump on everything I see. I've heard of like high CBC flower before, but it's not really something I trust yet. I don't really trust any other company other than Oregon CBD, and that's a bias on my part just because I haven't heard of many, and maybe a company will run into this podcast and be like, yo, Ross, I got something for you. But
hook Ross up. That's what he's saying right now. He's like, look, I'm sure
Please.
we love Oregon, but hook Ross up right now. He'll take it.
Yeah. So pretty much what I look for when I grew the CBG and CBDVs is I grew CBG my first year growing hemp solely because of compliance. And it was a new compound because that was 2021. So it was even early then. It's just because I knew that CBD strains test hot a lot, even if they're good genetics, just because that's what happens when THC likes to tag along with that CBD, no matter what you do. So like, even if you're trying your best to be compliant, that plant can just be like, nope, it's not happening. So like with CBG, I don't have to worry about that at all. And then when Oregon CBD released their CBDV line, which had like years of research back behind it, I knew the genetics were stable. And they also advertised that it's more compliant than CBD flower. So it, off the bat, made me want to grow it more than CBD flower, just because I want to harvest something that I have confidence is going to be compliant and is going to like, I don't want to work a whole summer to destroy my crop because it came back hot at like 0.5 to 1% THC, which I think is BS, but that's the rule. And we have to follow that 0.3 limit. So I'm searching for genetics that are compliant as well as contain novel cannabinoids and other secondary metabolites that can help people out.
Why cannabis, dude? Why the heck? What made you start on this journey to begin with?
I don't know. I was just at Hawking College actually for wildlife. I didn't even. I used cannabis in college, but I knew they had that program. And then, talks with my parents. I'm just like, I think I should switch. And then I switched, and then I've been sprinting in this industry since.
When you tell your parents you want to switch, like, are your parents like cool? Like, were you more like, oh shit, like I gotta tell my parents, like I want to get into this legit industry. I got a super smart head. I got a great plan, but mom, dad, like it's gonna be in the weed biz, or were they already like, well, let me finally break out the good stuff, son. Thank you for going to the dank closet. We're finally able to open up our fantastic retreats we've held for you for so long.
Check out this tent, Ross. We've been hiding from you.
I know. They're like, oh my gosh, we can finally remove the carbon filters from your attic, son.
No, so actually, they had like friends that told them about the program and were support. So they sort of had people their age backing it before I actually like told them I wanted to make the move. So like, although like parents aren't really heavy cannabis users, they barely use it all. I mean, they use my products, but THC wise, never. They just supported it just because people around them that were their age, that were professional, were sort of like, yeah, this is cool. It's a big industry. It's new. Like, he's not just doing it because he's a pothead. I mean, my grades backed why I didn't flunk out of this.
You know they side-eyed you a bit, though. You know they side-eyed you a little bit. They
100%.
always are like, all right, well, next 100%. Term, if we see a drop in them grades, we're pulling that weed approval card out. I do. Look, I'm 50 and I'm still struggling with this, Ross. It never ends. Like, it never ends. If you have that vibe.
I can't disagree with me. A little side-eye, and they still do a little bit. I can't lie.
My parents just never gave a damn. I was developing a water pipe for like 8 years, and they were just like, "Keep at it, boy!" Like it's persistence and grit will get you through, you know? And it's like, I don't know. Yeah. I have a different dichotomy watching BC's parents walk around at OCHBS, just kind of wide-eyed and interested in it all.
Are your parents that way? Like I'd love to talk about this. I took my parents who to the Ohio Cannabis Health and Business Summit, and they were like, my dad has years and years of trade shows and businessy things. And when he went there, there was two realizations. It's just like every other trade show. They're just hawking their wares and giving you free swag and doing what they do. And B, it's pretty normal. I think it was just normalized, but then they got into it and they started wanting every single chapstick and every single sample and every single coaster from every single vendor. Like they would they talked to more vendors that day than I did, which I felt was pretty impressive to go through the line. Do they get into the scene? Like, do they go to some of those, or is it more a kind of a management from afar with when it comes to that?
No, they don't really go to the events and stuff, but they do seem to be like really alert when other people talk about it other than me, because I mean I'm talking about it all the time, so like sometimes they're just like, shut up, Ross. But like when other people start
your weed.
Like some parts people can explain better than I can, and they'll listen, because like trying to explain to like my parents what like bubble hash is or BHO, sometimes they're just like their brain starts like the gears start slipping and stuff, because it's a lot to explain, because it just is like, yeah, we just take these sticky heads that are on the outside of the plant, we break them off and we filter them. They're just like, what the hell are you all stoners doing?
It brings up an interesting point though. So when you get into, as we get into potential adult use cannabis, Ross, and even with what you're doing on your products, right? Like when you have your products on screen, you have the products and the CBG, you're not breaking down all the science for the consumer, because it's a lot. Like, I don't want to know how my Coca-Cola is made. I don't even want to know how water gets into a bottle sometimes, because I feel like there's a lot and there's things I don't even want to think about. And so I think cannabis is in this weird world, and we're going to see how Ohioans react to it, of the people, the cannabis heads, right? The stoners and the weed heads, they want to hear the strain name. I'll take, for example, Ross, we were on your website. Here's how almost out of touch Dustin and I are. Dustin sits in, he's like, is stem cell a strain name, or is it like a, some sort of grow technique or something? And I'm like, I don't know. I got to find out. And then we click and we feel like it's a strain name. But even us who constantly we talk to people every single week about weed, and we're still surprised in learning CBDV, the stem cell strain, are two brand new things we learned just by going to Haught Hemp LLC website, right? Just in the link below in the comments, just by going there. So it's an interesting industry. And I know someone like you who sits in the testing, kind of nerdy scientific world. Do you wish more people got the nerdy stuff, or are you just at this side of the business saying, I'm going to sell it, I better make it simple, because no one wants to know how my bubble hash is made. They just want a nice little product in a gummy that tastes good.
Yeah. I got mixed emotions. Like, I obviously do, but I also understand why people don't, just because it's a lot and they have their own lives and they have their own hobbies that they pay attention to get into it that deep. You do sort of have to like dedicate some time to learning it. And so I understand that. So I always try to simplify it down, just like our processes, to where it's not overwhelming. Because if you over explain, it sort of like draws them away. Like they stop caring. So like I just always try to say like natural farm, none of my inputs are chemicals, and we extract the CBD and all the good stuff for you, solventless. And I just leave it at that. And if they ask more questions, then they ask them to me. But if they don't, then they're sold. Like
it's a weird thing. It's anybody who has a hobby. It seems like you got the guy who enjoys going to the games, and then you got the guy who's like, memorizing the stats on the back of the baseball card, and so
I can tell you so much about all these different plastic frisbees that I have, and the differences in the diameter and the threads. This is one of my disc golf, right? But it's that same thing, Dustin. I could tell you every nuance of this disc, and you're like, I think I even given Dustin a few new frisbees, and I'm like telling him about it. He's like, I'm just gonna throw it, man.
Well, he walks around with a damn suitcase full of them, and I'm there with my two discs that I've had for 15 years, and it's that difference.
But it's how people enjoy hobbies, right? Some people are all in and some are surface. But when you talk to other stoners, they get mad at you if you just want to enjoy surface level conversations, right?
Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with it. That was a good analogy, by the way, the Frisbees.
Well, it's any hobby, right? I could tell you, like, I like to play. Look, speaking of my parents, I like to go on the court and slap a few paddle ball back and forth. What's it called? Pickleball. I mean, do some pickleball every now and then. But they're constant. Like, my dad will have conversations about the diameter, width, and the wiffle balls and how it affects the flight path. And I'm like, that's cool, right? I could do the same thing when it comes to, you know, those things. So, but it's weird that cannabis sometimes has that crowd that gets very defensive when you don't know it and you don't want to know it and you just want to get high or you just want to feel better, which is interesting because where you're at, Ross, in the CBD, CBG, they tend to market on feel better, feel sleepy, feel this versus, which is why I think the stem cell strain name caught us off guard. Was that something you went and you're like, hey, I want to say it? Because usually strain, very, very rarely do I know the strain name of any of the CBG or the CBD I consume, right? It's just, I know, but my THC, I can tell you all the strain names, but I don't even look at it on the package. I trust the company, I buy it, it's going to be relaxing. Okay. It's weird, right? How CBD is so much about emotion and THC is about science.
Yeah, definitely. It is a little odd, especially because there are some crazy terp profiles in hemp as well. Not necessarily the CBG side of it. CBG strains actually don't tend to produce a lot of terpenes, although they're there. Like, I just actually had a terpene test done on my stem cell, and it was beta caryophyllene dominant, which is pretty odd. And it wasn't like, it's aromatic, but like you compare it to the CBD, CBDV strains, like those ones are stinky and they smell really good and like different effects of different plants. Like that's why people search for different weed strains they like, because some make them feel better, some taste better, some smell better. Same can be done with CBD flower. Obviously that's not everyone's cup of tea, but if you find quality CBD flower and you try it, it will surprise you.
You're absolutely right. From someone who smokes a lot, waking up in the morning and slapping back some CBG. I don't know, man. There are times where I'm just like, damn, I just switched completely over.
I think we need to talk about the CBG for a minute, Ross. Like, I need to have a better understanding of it. Like, I know, I need to understand how it doesn't test below 0.3% Delta 9 THC because CBG has IMO, an intoxicating effect, but it really doesn't. But it's like drinking a couple cups of coffee, and you can OD. I'm going to make a hot take. You can OD on CBG. You can actually get like shakes. You can smoke so much CBG that it's like having 7 Starbucks, and you're like, whoa. Like, I was with a friend, and he's like, I got to back off for a minute. Like, I'm starting to get a little like jittery. Like, what is? I don't even know what it is. Like, what is CBG? Why does it have this jittery, this up effect on us?
I don't know. I have noticed that. I was about to say it before you said it. It's not something I want to take before I go to bed.
No, like, it's definitely, it's an activity. It's a great, I'll tell you, it's low key speaking. It's a great disc golf strain because it focuses, but it gives you like a pep in your step without kind of a little bit of slogginess that maybe a THC can. I think CBG is missing out on not marketing itself as this like athletic enhancer, right?
Because CBD is all the chill, but like sometimes, like if you're trying to go disc golfing, do you want to chill? It seems like you don't. You're trying to go disc golfing.
You want the CBG marathon runners, like runners and things like that. It creates a little bit of a runner's high without the intoxicating effects that THC can sometimes affect. And we all know THC edibles can sometimes hit. They just hit. And CBG, I've only had it in flower. Do you have some edibles? I don't know. I feel like there's a missed market for the athletic, active person.
To me, it's my favorite parental cannabinoid. When I know I'm going to be with the kids, you know, like CBD will make me a little bit way too sleepy, and I'm like, fucking turn on YouTube for the next 2 hours. I'm taking a nap. And
I want that done in like a 50s. When you're with your kids and you want to be a good parent, smoke the CBG. It's what all the responsible adults do. That's what I want right now.
That's funny.
I don't know, but when you went from being a student to actually growing, what was that shift like for you? Because it is a big thing when your hands are finally in the soil and you understand how much work really went into growing this and then getting it processed, and then just the whole gamut of things, staying within the farm bill, making sure you're compliant in every step of the way, having to educate your customers. The whole thing is, is it still fun for you? Like, is it, I don't know. There's something to that that's like, when I have to do too much work in my hobby, it's not really a good hobby anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that a little bit. Sometimes I burn myself out, but every single time I look back, like the business, my growing is like, it's sort of my pride and joy. So like going through those deep ends of like, I really don't want to do this right now. Like it just makes it so much more worthwhile when you're done and you look back and you just laugh at like all the shitty times of like, I wanted to stop and I didn't. And look where I am now.
I think it helps when you are having that patient benefit too. When you can finally hear from the consumer and they said, listen, dude, Ross, this changed my mornings. This changed the way I interact with my children. This changed the fact that I can get up and go grocery shopping. I haven't been able to do that for 3 weeks. And when you can see and hear some of the testimonials, those are the times when I'm the lowest. That's what picks me up. It's rereading those reviews, that. That's just like, okay, this is truly, I'm in the right place at the right time doing what I'm meant to be doing.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. There's times where I've definitely thought about quitting, but like the people around me always bring me up. Like I only have one testimonial on the website right now, but I have a couple forms I sent out. There should be more in the next few weeks, but I've had some people, like, even though it may only be 3 to 5 people, coming to be more, there's some people that tell me some stories and I just like drop my jaw. I'm like, holy crap. Like, yeah, I'm doing this to try to support myself a little bit, but there's also people that like I've prevented this dog that had epilepsy. That's the only testimonial I have. The dog barely seizes now because of a product I grew. And she talks about how they tried every vet med and the vet meds were like killing the dog. Like it was stopping the seizures, but it was hurting it in other ways. Hearing that, and then like I had a coworker. He doesn't work with me anymore, but he was battling a bunch of illnesses and stuff. And he came up to me one day and he's like, "I took your tincture in the morning. I took a double dose, and I didn't feel pain for 2 hours, and it brought me to tears." And I literally almost cried.
Yes.
Wow.
It was crazy. That one hit me hard, like especially with people. It's like I'm so happy the dog's fine too, obviously, but like
I didn't see the dog market coming. If you would have said like 5 years ago that there's going to be a gigantic market where we're growing weed, and I know it's CBD, but we're growing the cannabis scientific name plant, and we're going to give it to pets. It's going to be a Pet Supplies Plus. I would have never. I'm not shocked to find it in the gas stations and the grocery stores. The pet stuff, I did not see it coming, but just what you're talking about, Ross, it is a legit thing, this natural herbal alternative. And if it works for some pets, and it's the other nice part is it's fairly healthy to try. There's probably not any negative going to come from giving it a shot.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have like any research behind putting it in pet treats other than like giving it to my dogs and people giving it to their dogs. Obviously there's studies on the internet, but like people can always question them and not believe them. So like a lot of the research is done just internally with your own products. Like, is it safe? Is it not? Like I've had people ask me, like, is my dog going to be harmed from this? And I'd have to say no, just because I've given my dogs a lot of it and they don't tend to do anything adverse on it. My dog at home actually, for like months before we put it on the pet tablets, would not jump up on beds. And I think it's because he was hurting some way, and now he can now again, just because, and it's something little, but it's something we noticed that like before this, for at least 3 months, he was not jumping up on a bed, and now he is, and he's doing it a lot. He's running, just like small things. So at least with the animals, like people notice it more. Like when people take CBD, if they're stoners, they have a hard time knowing what's going on, just because they're like, well, I'm used to smoking 30%, and this stuff ain't getting me like the 30%. Obviously, it's not gonna.
Here's the real question though. If you're like I'm never, I don't know, maybe bad days in college and stuff. I'm not, munching on pet treats, cat treats often. But if you're in a pinch and your CBD stack is empty, are you eating the pet CBD? Are you eating the pet? Like I'm right now, I can't do it. Just the fact it's like blue ketchup. Like Heinz tried to roll out blue and green flavored colored ketchup. It was gross just because it didn't taste any different. But psychologically, in this weird brain of mine, I couldn't do it. So if I needed CBD and the only thing I had was marketed, and I know that it's just a label. There's no fucking way I'm eating a pet treat. There's no way I'm eating pet CBD. I'm not going to have it. I'd be like,
sure, even if there's only 2 ingredients, which are freeze-dried chicken and premium CBG rosin from Haught Hemp.
I'm a slave to marketing. No, man, you sell it to me one way. I'm a marketer. Like, you sell it to me for pets, and nope. It's that. It's like, it's the same principle though. Like, you can go to the grocery store, and when it says buy one, get one free, you don't have to buy that second one, right? My wife will buy 1 bag of chips for $2. I will roll home with 2 bags of chips and talk about how awesome it was that those 2 chips were only $4. Like, I got 2 bags, only $4. She'll be like, we only had this, no. 2 bags, spent $4. Are you not seeing the math? Are you not amazed by the awesomeness that I've delivered upon you today? So yes, you put pet CBD, not happening. Now,
I want it either.
Okay.
I'm not going to.
If they had pet THC, thank you, Ross. Right? Dustin's like, hell yeah, bro. Dustin's like, I'm chopping it right now. Is it a cheaper price point? I bet you it's more expensive. I bet you it's way more expensive marketed for pets, because you pet owners are crazy people, and you'll spend a ton of money on your pet.
Yeah, products. I've noticed people are more willing to invest in their pets than try it themselves and invest in their own wellness, just because of fear and stigma behind products. Where like, oh, if my dog gets high for a day, at least it's not me.
It's so crazy because it is one of those, we talk about a lot on the show, where we just one of those medications where everybody tells you that they're fucking medication. They're at the grocery store in the checkout line. They're like, by the way, I smoke this strain and it's awesome. But no one's walking around going, I take this antidepressant.
I got 2 new pills for my gout this morning.
Yeah, exactly. But cannabis is one of those things where they want to tell people everything that they're on. But you're right. There is a clear separation to those who have been doing it for a long time and the newer people that are just starting to say or feel the need, like, maybe I need to try something else. This other thing hasn't been working. And I hope, or everybody is claiming, that there's this CBD or other cannabinoid that is helping, and so it's that final jump off the cliff to jump into their own wellness, that I could see that barrier being a very difficult thing to breach sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes people make that leap and they try like a low dose isolate product and they don't feel much, just because a lot of the stuff's stripped out of it. And that's where I sort of like promoting the whole plant, like, although it might not taste as perfect as you want it to and stuff like that, that there are benefits, and there are huge benefits of taking more from the plant than stripping it out and making it tasteless and trying it that way. I don't know much science off the top of my head, but isolate, there has to be X% less effective than a whole plant just because of the stuff you're taking out.
Yeah, it makes sense like anything, right? It's like boiling, some food. Like, that you boil broccoli, just the steam and the water loss, like nutrients are lost. It just has to be. And so isolates be the same way. I can't stop running through this image of like the old lady in front of me at the pharmacy opening up the bag and turning around. Like at the dispensary, they'll be like, hey, check out all this stuff I got. She's never been like, look at my diabetes meds and look at my thing in here. Like no one, like they're like, give me a privacy zone. Like someone will shame you if you're within like 6 feet of them at the actual pharmacy. And at the dispensary, everyone's walking out the door, high-fiving each other and be like, we got medicine. What? Who's got at my local pharmacy? She's like, get away from me. Oh, cannabis, folks. It's going to be good times here in Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
So
in the lab scenario, go on.
No, you go.
I
Well,
was
now we're
just
both
curious
stuck.
about you. You know, you're spending half your time in the lab, you know, doing testing, and then the other half you are spent growing your own stuff and working through that, being an entrepreneur in general. Um, how is the testing life? How is it to be so regimented and I don't know, I don't want to say requirement focused, but there is a very clear step one, step two, step three, and no room to play in any of it. There's no variance to change something or to do something differently. How is it being in that type of environment?
At first, it was overwhelming. The main benefit I can think of off the top of my head is it's not manually labor intensive, and all the jobs I've had before working at the lab were. So it actually sort of is nice for me to like not strain my body because I've done landscaping, and then when I got to turn 21 and got all my degrees and certificates, I started growing, which is labor intensive. Then I started the farm, and it's a lot of like back-breaking work. So going over there was nice to like, it's almost like a relief to get away from that. But the testing is, it can be nerve-wracking just because there is a lot on the line. Like there's patient safety, there's reporting accurate results. So have that pressure on your back can be a lot, but you sort of get used to it. And I've come to enjoy it. I like testing this stuff. I think it's fun. The science behind it is crazy. And that, I think that's a thing that a lot of people need to know more about, because it's not just a quick little take your bud, put it in like a, I don't know, like a little tube or something, and it's done. The test, like there's a lot involved with it. There's a lot of science, and most people don't know the first step to it, which is crazy because the
It
lab
is
side of the
interesting.
industry is very regulated, and it's more organized than any other part of the industry I've been in.
It is funny because testing will be one of the things that you go on to the old cannabis social media stuff, and they will decry the testing and they will bemoan the results that these companies have, and they'll complain about how we can't test our own products and how it would showcase this and that. Yet they don't really get it. Like they don't. And I know there's a few people that get it, but they don't get it to the level that I do. And I don't even have a tenth of the level that you have and beyond, right? You can talk to some folks, some really highly respected, regarded folks in testing because of the days that came before. And I believe testing is a little bit better, but because of those days, and because when you get into the adult use, when you find a testing lab you like, and it gets the THC numbers you like, is really not a lot of incentive to say, I just would like a second opinion, sir. I don't know why I'm doing accents today. There's no need for a second opinion. You only get the second opinion when you grow some bud that you think is soup's dank and they tell you it's like 19 and you're like, no, right? But when you get that high number, and I mean a high THC percentage, which equals dollar bills, people go there and they stop going. So how is it from, there's several testing labs in Ohio, and no names, but only one of them does a lot more business than the rest. So it's a weird business to get into because you're trying to compete with these folks and you're trying to give accurate results, but yet testing is also half marketing, right? We know people go into dispensaries. We know the stats. They go sort price, sort THC, low price, high THC. It's a bang for buck industry. Most sales are, right? They just are. So how do we prove to folks that testing is legit? How do we prove to cannabis companies that testing's legit and that they should do it? I don't know. It's a weird industry, and I'm just curious on your thoughts of someone who does the day-to-day, thoughts on kind of the big picture of what the outside world yips and yaps about the testing industry.
So testing is definitely necessary. There's no possible way that people can do it themselves unless they want to invest millions of dollars and train themselves on instruments that require college degrees. Like there are people coming out with like mobile terpene testing or the mobile potencies. I've seen a couple where they have little cells. I have a hard time believing in those and the accuracy within them, just because the instruments that we run on require maintenance, require different solvents. Like we're doing a lot of work before it goes on that instrument. So like when I see like something advertised where like you put a bud in a chamber and you can take it out
It
and
shines
smoke
right
it
through it,
afterwards.
and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's bad.
I have a hard time believing those results, but when it comes to trusting your lab, you want to make sure they're accredited for sure. I know the place I work at, Pinnacle, is ISO 17025, which is a good accreditation. In other states, Ohio is different because Ohio requires it. So that's good for Ohio that they're requiring some type of standard since there is no standardized testing practices. It's good that they're shooting for the stars. They're telling the labs in Ohio that you have to have a really hard accreditation to get, or you can't run. Places like California or like Oregon, I don't know this off the top of my head, but I know that not all of them are that held to that high of a standard. And not only that, some may not be accredited. Maybe they're just allowed to take samples. And when it gets into that area of the market, it gets really weird because if you're not accredited, you can do whatever you want.
yes. And my brother's a breeder, and he has in Michigan, and even in Michigan, one state up, he's definitely had some conversation with lab operators where they said, for a little bit extra money, we'll make a test at this rate. And he's like, well, what the fuck? Like, are you telling me that my competitor's doing that? And so, what, obviously I don't want to do this. I was doing this for myself, for my patients as a caregiver. But if you are telling me that I could pay more money and it will say something different, what the fuck is this whole industry based on? What exactly is it? And so I generally respect Ohio's attitude. I've also seen other states where, like, one of the senators owned, the largest testing facility, and also made it a requirement to do all testing in the state on every product. And there's always going to be some weird nuances, but I have been pretty proud of the way Ohio has took the initiative in certain.
Yeah, it seems like they're sort of operating scared, which is fine. That they want to make sure that no harmful products are getting out. Obviously, they probably care about the falsification of data. They don't want people reporting a 15% strain at 35, something like that. So Ohio cares about that. Now, they care about safety a lot because Ohio actually has some of the lowest action limits for stuff like pesticides and heavy metals compared to other states. So, like, for Ohio, it's actually hard for, like, us as a testing lab in some scenarios to get that low. Like, to consistently find stuff in those low ranges requires a lot of service, like a lot of, like, steady hand, because you have to make solutions to go on that instrument as well. You don't just throw the diluted cannabis product. You have to calibrate it and do all this other stuff, which requires you yourself to be extremely accurate in keeping that instrument in top condition so that it can constantly reach that low of a sensitivity. It's tough, and maybe Ohio will get to a point to where they raise them, but right now that could be a lot of the reason that labs are having a tough time in Ohio is that it's hard to test that low.
Do you think, just both of you, in your opinions, now that we've talked through this a little bit, do you think Ohio raises the standards at the behest? You know who's going to, I mean, the cultivators want this. They want to have higher standards because that means less product be destroyed. That means less product that they can worry about testing a little hot. I know Ohio is fighting the THC cap of 35%, but I've heard it may go up a little bit. But I've heard that is a sticking point. So I don't know if we're going to get much above that. But do you think Ohio, obviously at the behest of cultivators, they will beg for this to happen? Do you think they'll push for that to raise standards? Would you be shocked if that happened? To lower standards, I guess, not raise, like lower standards to make it easier to get less quality product out, I guess.
Yeah, I think they'll allow it at some point. I sort of have a biased opinion that I think it's like almost impossible to get strains consistently that high. Like to get a strain over 35. I'm not saying it can't be in the 30s because I know that's possible, but to get one over 35 sort of like makes me question it. Now, it could just be that genetics are getting so crazy that we're finally breaking through and getting strains that are that potent. Or it could just be that
it could be. We had Andrew D'Angelo on, and he was talking about that. He said, look, if you get to be like 40, 50%, telling me that thing is 50% trichomes, he goes, it's impossible. It'd be like snowing Christmas all the time. Like at some point, it can't be that much THC because there's flower material. And if I'm looking at the flower is the majority of it. It can't be hundreds and hundreds of percent to that. But it is an interesting thing because that number, it's magical, Ross. Like at 20 to 25 is a big price jump. You get into the 35s and you can charge a lot and people will pay it because they want that experience, right? When it comes out here, when the people who push the 35% here and go a little heavier on the THCA, they're at the 37% and whatnot. That stuff sells out the morning. Like it's gone.
I don't understand that because I get way more stoned off of a more balanced, like 18 and some change with a little bit of CBD.
And I paid half the price.
And I paid half the price. Yeah, some of the shit the strains I still think about on a weekly basis, like, fuck, I wish I had that still, are much lower than that. So it's a weird thing. It's I don't know.
Yeah, how are we going to grow up? Placebo effect.
Well, I'll tell you, I just had my first.
People are so excited to get that high THC strain, and then they get it, and they're like, wow, this is so much better, but it's like maybe their mind's just telling them it's better.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like it's the opposite. So I just, because it was a really good price, some 33% THC. Now, I won't say the company, I won't say the strain. It was good, but I bought similar stuff from them, which was supposed to be testing out at like 22%. That was what it said. And I, my wife is my tester because she doesn't give a crap about your fancy marketing. She just wants to feel it, right? That's all she needs. I don't care about any names, any colors, anything you put, feel, right? And I didn't tell her. I didn't tell you anything, right? Because I wanted to, and I made it specifically because sometimes you mix match or whatever. I wanted very specific experiences with both of these. And so it had a great taste. I won't give it. It was yummy, but it was like a sweeter terpene strain. So it's going to be, the other one was more like fruity. So either way, I was, I guess, disappointed. Like I had this expectation of like, just take one hit. Like, here we go. Let's see what happens. Like, woo, not that much, but I did have, like, it was going to be less. Like I did say the amount I don't smoke Ohio, would be, I know, hell yeah, wait a minute. I do smoke it. The amount I smoke is like one bowl full. That ratio, I know what one bowl of 22% feels like, right? So I thought one bowl of 32% would amplify that, but I was like, it was good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where it comes into play, where as the industry matures, people are really going to want to know those secondary metabolites more and more because they might start to understand that terpenes and esters and flavonoids and volatile sulfur compounds and all this other stuff that people haven't even heard of yet. Like once labs start like finding that and they're able to test it accurately, and like there's so many areas in weed that can be tested that aren't right now that play a part, like that. Like I mentioned, the volatile sulfur
drop
compounds.
Some knowledge. What are some areas that we should be testing on? I don't know what you're even talking about. You're saying words I've never even heard of. So drop some knowledge on us, Ross. What are we not talking about in these plants?
So I'll talk about VSCs, which is volatile sulfur compounds. I just read some research on this like a couple of weeks ago. It plays into aroma a lot with weed, and it sort of answers the question of like, why does my weed smell so much but the terpene results are low? It's because there's way more to weed than just terpenes. And one of those things is the VSCs. Now, they are volatile, as it says in the name, so they can evaporate really quick. But it's just an area of, like, that compound could be 1% on top of the 2% terps that you have on that flower. And maybe that 1% plays a huge part in how you feel after you smoke it or after you consume it, however you consume it. And it's not something that just people are aware of yet. So maybe they'll start to understand that if they are testing for that stuff, if it has that and it has an abundance, that they tend to enjoy strains like that. So even if the THC is hitting a little lower, if it has this other stuff and it has an abundance of it, they might seek that product.
So let's talk about then. I just saw a new service of like a 23andMe, but it was for cannabis, for you and cannabis.
Is it 23 and weed? Because I feel like that's the name we got to steal right now. They didn't name it that. We are marketing that on the show.
It's a very similar idea where they will do DNA testing on you, and then with that data, they can tell what terpenes, what cannabinoids and how they interact with your genetics. And so they help you dial in exactly what you need and what is beneficial to you, you know? And so what do you feel about the fucking weed world getting to that point, you know, where you think in 15 years and we're like, have you had your DNA testing for your cannabinoids? You know, like and I don't know, like it seemed crazy at first, but the more and more I was thinking about it as a patient, I'm like, I'm tired of, and I can't always risk it, of being able to buy something and not knowing what the effect is going to be on me. I'm trying to take care of very specific ailments, and if I purchase something and it has the opposite effect of what it really, really needed to, not only is it a lot of money to go down the drain, but it could cause a whole enormous amount of other problems. And so it's made me question whether or not something, you know, it's made me question the validity of it in another way. And now I'm like, shit, maybe I should do something like that and learn about it. Learn about
maybe
myself.
If the science backs it, run with it. Maybe that's where the cannabis-specific doctors come into play that are out there. Maybe they are, maybe there aren't. I don't really know of any off the top of my head that are like so into the weed science where it just makes people like us be like,
I think they're
crazy.
and far. I think they're coming along, but right now, when you think your local weed doctor, you think, what's your problem? Got some chronic pain? Go get some weed, son. Like that's how.
Yeah.
A lot of them. There's some great ones. Shout out Dr. Bridget Williams. There's some folks who talk to you about your condition and want to feel your mental state, who may follow back up with you, maybe give you a journal and say, hey, write it down. It's a self-guided thing. I don't know, and I'm sure there are a few, but I think you're right, Ross. Maybe that in Dustin, and you're right. As soon as you said it, Dustin, I went, shut the front door. Like, come on. That is a scam all over it. It feels gross to me. But then you break it down and say, well, if I know, like when you get a what's it called? You get a test at the doctor, you find out what you're allergic to, right? And so they give you those pinpricks and you say, well, now I'm allergic to shellfish, and now I should know to avoid that. You could learn the hard way. Or if you have a result that says, look, these terpenes or this VSCs or these things are best for your body and it's going to give you the ideal result. It's not
it's going to target this area of your brain or this part of your body. And like, because right now, like all we can really talk about mainly is like terpenes and cannabinoids, which is a great start. It's just going to get better and better and better. Because I mean, even me, like I don't really know much about specific terpenes that I want to consume. I just go off of like, if my nose likes it, I'm going to smoke it.
That's so funny. Someone who looks at, like, I don't know terpenes because I don't see the names of them. You have to look at the terpene names all day long on these certificates. Like, you know them, like, you know how to pronounce them properly. And so
I don't know
feel
how
like
to
you would
pronounce
be
them
more
all.
aware. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, that's overwhelming. We test 64 and I'm like, man, 64 terpenes.
What's your favorite terpene?
More. My favorite, I like the limonene. I like the fruity weed.
But my kid will fucking memorize 300 Pokemon, you know? Like,
yeah.
Somehow, like...
Oh, there's someone out there. There's a terpene Timmy who's just got them all off the top of his head. He can roll them off and go. I like the sweeter ones. I don't know what causes the plant to be along the cookies, cake lineages, whatever makes it that, kind of sweetish taste. Not Swedish as in the country, but sweetest. That's where I tend to roll. That's the ones I like. I don't need that gassy shit either. Overrated skunky weed. I'm just putting it out there. Hot takes all over the place today. We're talking with Ross Haught, Hemp Farms. You can find the information to Ross's site. Lots of great products available. So you're sitting here, Ross. You have a couple of years in. We know that cannabis is legal in Ohio. We know that there's a lot of rules and regulations to come, so we don't need to debate that. But for you, two things, I guess. A, you hear this news, gotta make a few thoughts pop in your head, or maybe not. Where do you think, or what's your goal? What do you want to do? Like, what are some of your plans or goals? Either things you have maybe coming out, or things that you just would like to see yourself doing now that you maybe have more potential. Do you try to go THC? Do you become the master of CBG? What do you want to do?
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to keep running with the CBD, DV, CBG. I'm going to keep running with that just because it's a part of the industry that's not really touched on, and not only can it enhance effects like if mixed with THC, but it can also be there for people that want low THC products, because not everyone can consume on the level that maybe I do or you guys do, where these high THC, like, just it wrecks people, whether they eat it or whether they smoke it. Maybe they're seeking that relief, but can't get it from weed, and that's where the non-psychoactive part. Now, we have talked about how CBG can rock you, and I agree with that, and it can rock you even more.
It's
if you
a
mix it with
different
weed.
kind of rock, though. It's a different thing.
But
There's
it's also
focused
another
energy.
tool.
It's like drinking a Red Bull or something to me. I don't know.
And
Yeah,
you know what?
I
When I
agree.
went to OCHBS, I was telling BC, I ate an edible that fucking wiped me. It
Illegal
got
edible.
me so hard. And if it wasn't for my CBG flower to even me back out a little bit, I don't know. Like, to be able to use it as a tool when I need it, why I need it, I just think it's important to have that choice. And it's part of what makes cannabis as a medicine work for me. The fact that I can pick and choose the format that I'm going to ingest it or take it into my body, pick and choose exactly which of certain things I'm going to take. It's changed my whole perception of wellness and using it as a tool, having like it in my toolkit in general. And so
Definitely, because I pick and choose when I want to use hemp versus THC. Like, personally, I've been taking a break from THC just because I've been trying to focus a lot more and be a lot more productive. So I'm sort of leaning on the side of less brain fog, which I tend to get from just high THC weed from consuming. So, I mean, right now, since we don't really have those cannabis doctors, it's all about self-experimentation. What do you like? When do you like it? And just ride with it. Like, your body's yours. If you like the CBD at night, if you like the CBG in the day, you like the THC whenever, it's your preference. Just go with it.
It is interesting. It's one of the things that makes cannabis a little hard to maybe have that kind of exact science, Dustin, right? Like, when you think of, like, I think of pain relief meds. Like, when I take an Advil or a Tylenol, like, I kind of know how it's going to make me feel. And if I have a headache, it typically relieves those symptoms. And when you take Advil, Dustin, it typically relieves inflammation symptoms. And when you take Advil, Ross, it tends to typically relieve those same inflammation symptoms. But yet, if we each had a joint of a similar strain of product, we're going to feel similar, but we are all going to experience that differently. And I think if we all took our Advil, I think we experience it fairly similarly. And that's that naturally created medicine versus, the chemically created. But maybe that's the future, Dustin. Maybe it is super smart folks who are extracting cannabinoids and making them into kind of a pill form and giving you the very, very super easily specific, all those things we talked about, that takes it away. But that's what's interesting, because cannabis doesn't have the same effect on people, right? Tolerance. There's no Advil tolerance. I mean, there kind of is to a point, I guess, but not exactly, right? You're still taking 2 or 3 Advil and then you feel better. It's a weird thing, like, that we experience that different versus the same.
Like, similar to the concept of like, everyone has different chemistries in their body, and some people feel edibles and some people don't.
Yeah, so how do you sell a product that's like some people don't feel? Like, most people feel Advil, right? To the point, because they have it down. It's just a weird thing. I think as cannabis grows up, I think they're going to answer that question. I think it gets solved, right? I mean, I think they're solved that at some point.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a pinpoint answer. Right now, it's just, wow, it's crazy that you can feel and I can't. Like, I have a friend that's my exact same build, size, age, and we both, like, I don't even take edibles anymore just because of how hard they hit me, but he can take them like a champ. He can keep taking them, and he looks sober. And if I take, like, the corner piece off a chocolate bar, a little nibble, I'm gone for the night. I don't even know who I am anymore.
I have got to work with a couple really neat cannabis companies where kind of like remind me of some of the new hair care products and shit like that. Well, they will talk to you, understand your background, your lineage, your the genealogy behind your family, and then specifically cater their components within the shampoo that they're about to send you before they send it to you. Really, really try to dial in you. And I have worked with a couple edibles companies that are doing that, where they are spending a lot more time speaking to the patient before the manufacturing stage, and then shipping out 6 months worth of stuff that are specifically formulated to them. So I see it happening. I just don't know how the hell you scale something like that. How can you, when you finally have 30,000 customers as opposed to 200, it becomes a much different process on how do you individualize the care. But what as we wrap up the hour, what is the most exciting thing within the industry for you right now? What are you honestly in the next 3 years excited to kind of see happen, or a new, I don't know, intake method? I don't really.
Yeah, so the industry as a whole, I just hope that, I love the science that comes out with it, because the science is crazy, and it even overwhelms me. It's really hard to understand. So I like the research that's going on right now, because a lot of people are really starting to dive deep and find some crazy stuff out about cannabis. I hope they keep doing that. Obviously, the market has been all over the place for every state, and everyone's experienced their hardships, but the market's inevitably going to stabilize at some point, and people are going to start diversifying where they get products and what they buy and why. For Ohio, I really want this rec bill to go out good. I want to have the shot at growing outdoor THC dominant varieties in the next 5 years. Maybe not this year. I don't know how they're going to do it, because unless an investor comes my way, I don't have the funds to do an indoor or greenhouse, but I got the property and I got a green thumb. I love the solution. I'm trying to find outdoor. I just won the outdoor license.
It'll get there. I think it will happen. It's going to take them a minute to wrap it around. I think some patience will be there, and that part. You'll have sales by next summer, midsummer 2024. You'll start to see adult use sales. And then I think within a few years, I think you'll start to see the outdoor part of it happen, right? It took a little bit of Michigan too, and I think Michigan has a fairly robust actually outdoor market, because you can, you got to get it quick in and out of the season, but I think it'll happen.
Yeah.
I think they'll get I think what they're worried about is every person that lives house stacked upon house growing 6 plants in their backyard. I think they have to find a way to define that by acreage and lot views and neighbor views. And some states have those guidelines built in. You need to worry about pollen drift, right? You can't be growing your cannabis and I'm growing my, whatever next door. What sativa or cannabis has a 10-mile pollen drift thing. So
it's terrifying.
That's something you're going to find out.
Yes.
There's not cool lawsuits about CBD farmers suing THC farmers because their CBD is now testing too hot because their other plants are just blowing pollen 10 miles away.
Competitor with a damn drone purposely doing some stuff with your thing,
I would never think of that.
So,
yeah.
And it's happening, so...
I want some drone weed wars. I want 2 old school legacy dudes who all look like Dustin, who look like 70-year-old Dustins, but they're also super technologically advanced that they're flying drones over and, dropping, different terpene profiles just to fuck with their testing results. They don't want to mess with their weeds because they respect the plant. They would never do that. But they want it to test differently. You know what? I'm genetically modifying your strain from above. All right, we're getting a little loopy here. Ross Haught Hemp Farms. You can find all the link in the information below. Got some really cool products coming out with focusing on that CBG, focusing on the CBD, the CBDV variant that we talked about for the show. Thank you so much, Ross, for joining us, talking with us, educating us. You dropped some science today, some science knowledge.
After 100 shows, you still taught these old dogs some new tricks, man.
No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll have to come back on soon and keep spreading the word.
Keep spreading the word. Ross Haught Hemp Farms. Thank you very much for joining us. Dustin, wonderful to see you listening out there. Make sure you hit subscribe. Hit that button right now. Follow us at MeetWN or at Because Cannabis on your social medias and all those good places, everyone. Till then, Dustin, take care. I'll see you guys all next week.
Peace.